Let's talk to David Lombardi about it, at Lombardi himself, and read all his great stuff in The Athletic, and he's off to a great start as always. Great piece on the long run, which basically sealed the game at that point, and all the numbers on Nick Bosa's contract, what's going on with all this cap space, all those things. Let's talk to David Lombardi about it. He joins us courtesy of the UMA guest line. What's happening?
Not much. I'm really enjoying Pittsburgh. There's a direct flight to SFO out at 7 p.m. today, so I'm just going around like the little suburbs and stuff. And yeah, it's really cool. Like it's like this slice of Americana when you leave downtown. Just these old little main streets and stuff. Like it's a neat city, neat area. And I guess they have. I'm going to check it out next. They have the steepest street in America. So I thought San Francisco had the steepest
more than
streets,
Lombard.
Well, Lombard, I guess, isn't as steep because they made it curved, right?
Yes,
they made it curved. The switchback. So this one is just straight, and I'm going to go check it out. I'll send you some pictures. So that's my next stop.
John used to live there. John, what's that red tram? You go up the side of the mountain and it takes you on top of the hill.
The Monongahela Incline. Yeah. I took that the other day. That's cool.
Isn't that awesome up there? There's some great lunch spots up there.
Very cool.
All right.
I wrote my Nick Bosa contract analysis from up there.
You did. I know. You were texting me all Saturday night. I'm $42 million. We'll get into it all. But we just came in with a play call. I love your breakdown. Tell me all about 19 structure fool. Where the hell did they get that call? That's a weird one.
Well, that's one of their standard zone plays. But the fool part of it is that Brandon Ayuk was meant to be deceptive on the play. And he actually – I can't say that he faked the down block because he actually did execute the down block for about a second or two against Alex Highsmith, which, by the way, I don't think there's another NFL team that's going to ask a wideout to block an edge rusher even for a second or two on a play like that. But what Ayuk did is that he very convincingly sold the blocking action, the down blocking action, and then he sprung downfield and he found the next guy to block, which was the DB that he flattened downfield. So, you just conceptualize what happened on that play. This is the McCaffrey 65-yard touchdown. Within the course of about 4 seconds, Brandon Ayuk blocked the defensive end, and then he blocked a defensive back 15 yards away. So, I mean, that's a tremendously difficult ask of anyone. But Brandon Ayuk executed it because you have to show the speed to be able to cover that ground in those 4 seconds, and you have to show the strength and you just the hunger and the desire to be able to pull off both of those blocks. But yesterday, the 49ers just had a very, very aggressive run game plan as far as what they were asking their receivers to do blocking-wise. You saw a lot of action from Brandon Ayuk working against linebackers inside, not necessarily in space. And I think that illustrates why this 49ers team's ceiling is so damn high, because they're doing stuff that other teams aren't doing schematically. And when, if you can execute those things, and Kyle Shanahan, counts on the receivers to be able to execute those things. But when you can do that, you get performances like the Packers game in the NFC Championship a few years ago, or you get what you saw yesterday on the McCaffrey 65-yard run. And the special thing about yesterday is that the 49ers executed to perfection, at least on that play, in week one. It looked like they were in midseason form in week one. And hopefully what I, just explained helps illustrate how complicated and how tough it is to execute at that level this early in the season.
David Lombardi is joining us. He's still in Pittsburgh, 30-7. The 49ers get the win. He wrote a great piece in The Athletic today about that 65-yard run that sealed it on the second play of the second half. DeMonte Casey, I'm sure when they're going to watch film, he's going to get grief for it. But like you said, that's a 10-yard, 12-yard run, but then that block springs it, then Ray down the field. And a lot of guys would have given up. Then Ray goes down and takes out another DB. I think it was Patrick Peterson on that play, and that makes it the 65-yarder. And I'm sure, knowing Kyle like we do, I'm sure he's excited for all the catches and all the plays these guys make. That makes us really happy. But I bet he's more enthused by those two blocks down the field.
Absolutely. And, it's a prerequisite to block to play in this scheme. And I can't underscore enough how important this is to cover and to talk about, because other teams don't have this as a prerequisite for their wide receivers. I mean, we've seen the entire league move more toward a passing style of football in general over the past decade plus, or even over the past couple decades plus. And the art of blocking on the perimeter, really isn't what it used to be. And I think the 49ers are zagging while the rest of the league is zigging. It creates playtime issues sometimes for young wide receivers because it's not easy to step in front of Alex Highsmith. I mean, we saw George Kittle struggle on a run block against Alex Highsmith. So when you're asking Brandon Ayuk, somebody who's much lighter than George Kittle, to do it, that for most receivers in the league, that is a tough ask, and that's something that can completely break a play. And for the 49ers, for Ayuk yesterday, it didn't break the play. It worked, right? So, again, these are things the 49ers are doing that I have to underline that other teams aren't doing them, and that's why they look so impressive, while a lot of offenses looked like crap around the league yesterday. The 49ers just are doing things differently, and it seems they've hit their stride earlier in the season than usual.
And Ray McLeod also had a great couple of blocks getting downfield, didn't clip, which brought McCaffrey the last 20 yards or so. But Ayuk in the deke leader was just big time. And what a game for him yesterday. He gets targeted 8 times. He catches all 8. And you could say they're tilting coverage to other guys, but Pittsburgh plays a lot of man coverage, and this guy just beats man coverage. He was a great route runner when he came in as a rookie, but now he is way better. He's just whipping off routes. You can't cover him. So they're going to have to start tilting coverage his way, which leads to the clearing and the restructuring of all the contracts this weekend with Trent Williams and Eric Armstead and George Kittle. And all of a sudden, they were right up against the cap. They're going to get Bosa signed, and now they have $42 million in cap room. So what does that mean for the short term, do you think, between now and the deadline of Halloween as far as the trade deadline? But more importantly, one thing we talked about, this whole offseason with Deebo's contract last year, David, and how can they afford Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk on the team together with all the restructures they were able to do and cleared up cap room? What does that do for their ability to sign Brandon Ayuk next year?
Well, Brandon Ayuk, when they sign him, they'll actually, if they sign him early, they could actually lower his cap hit and create more carryover space. But essentially, it's really hard to explain without the written component, but I'll try to summarize it as briefly as possible. The 49ers opened up $42 million now by restructuring key contracts and by signing Nick Bosa, which lowered his cap hit. They backloaded his deal. So they restructured Kittle, they restructured Trent Williams, and they restructured Eric Armstead. They converted base salary to signing bonus because the cap hit of a signing bonus is spread out over several years. So the bet is that they're going to continue to get productive, efficient play from the veterans who they restructured and from Nick Bosa for at least 2 years, but preferably at least 3, and for Bosa longer than that. And so what that does with the space that's opened up now, the 49ers can theoretically roll it over into 2024, where they're already like $40 million over the cap. And unused space, by the way, does roll over from year to year. They also have the option power to spend this year, which they didn't have before these restructures. So basically, the 49ers are now sitting here with options. If they decide they really need an upgrade at right tackle, for example, because Colton McKivitz did struggle against T.J. Watt yesterday, they have a ton of draft picks and they have a ton of money now in the near term to be able to spend before the trade deadline. Or they can go ahead and just stash that money away and spend it in 2024. And because they have enough money, theoretically, $42 million to cover all of their 2024 expenses now, it does give them power to potentially re-sign Brandon Ayuk. The bet here for the 49ers, again, is that the players like Kittle, Armstead, Williams are all good and productive for at least 2 more seasons. Because if they're not and you have to cut ties, that's when you hit the same problem that the Rams did when they started taking away guys like Jared Goff and Brandon Cooks. That's when you would enter cap hell. But if you're willing to spend like the 49ers are on these signing bonuses, and if these players stay efficient relative to their contract and you don't have to let go of them, you're not going to hit cap hell because the salary cap is going to increase year over year.
I think the most interesting part there is as you said, the money rolls over so they'll be fine next year. But if there was an injury, if they had an issue, Colton McKivitz you talk about, where they're thin because they're so top-heavy, if they have a key injury at a specific position, they could actually take a guy in the last year of his contract, use up some of that money, and that wouldn't hurt them to next year. So they've gotten themselves a big old insurance policy right here.
Yeah, they do. But everything does come with a risk. Again, when you do these restructures or when you extend somebody like Nick Bosa to a record contract, you have to make sure that the money is going to players who you deem are reliable. Otherwise, you're going to get burned. And the Rams, for example, are the cautionary tale of a team that did get burnt with a lot of this. They just weren't able to. I always liken the salary cap to a sink, right? There's water pouring into the sink, and you've got to keep the level of water under the surface of the sink. And for the Rams, it overflowed, and they had to start cutting players to fit under the cap. I think the 49ers are set up if they do get continued efficient play from Williams, from Armstead, from Kittle, from Bosa. They're set up for the sink to not run over, and that's what's important. And the only way you get there is if your ownership is willing to spend a lot of guaranteed money for Nick Bosa, $50 million signing bonus that spreads out against the cap. The previous high for signing bonus for edge rushers was $35.6 million, TJ Watt. So what we saw was a 40% increase in the top signing bonus when Nick Bosa signed his contract from 35.6 to 50 million. That is an unprecedented increase. But is Jed York willing to spend to keep this title window open?
The Warhol Museum. Have you been there, David? Andy Warhol is
I
from
haven't.
Pittsburgh. The North
Yeah,
Shore,
he is.
right, John? Isn't that on the North Shore, right
Yes.
by Acrisure?
It's real close to the stadium, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Check that out.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There's actually a lot to see here. This is one of the great American cities of the 20th century when steel was at its height, right? So you could tell in the architecture downtown, it's very grand.
Without question. Reminds me of my hometown of Buffalo, Bethlehem Steel and all the steel mills in Pittsburgh. And the hills of that city, I mean, if people haven't been to Pittsburgh and you come out of Fort Pitt Tunnel and it's just, John, you live there, that is a beautiful city. It's really underrated.
Real nice. And they've redone it, too, so it's actually really nice now. Very cool. Right on, man. Hey, thanks for the insight. Great pieces as always. You guys do a great job over there. We look forward to it all season long. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Davey.